Well, in spite of the saying, never judge a book by its cover, people form impressions of each other based on initial behavior. Often, not always, first impressions are relatively accurate. Miles Patterson is a professor of psychology at the University of Missouri St. Louis. He's written 90 publications, including 4 books, and among other things, he was the editor of the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior. His new book is More Than Words, The Power of Nonverbal Communication. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And so you have this new book out, and you just keep doing this research over 4 decades.
Oh, yeah. There's always a new wrinkle. Every time you think you've got a question answered, something else comes up, and it's always intriguing. One thing that's happened over the years is it's pretty clear that in most social situations, the nonverbal typically outweighs the verbal. Not always. If I say you're fired or here's $1 million,
exactly.
That's much more important.
Can you explain to us when people say, well, that's body language,
okay,
reading body language? Explain to us. That's really interesting.
That's one of the things I wanted to do in the book was to correct that misnomer. That's how everybody knows it. But in fact, the nonverbal system involves more than the body, and it's not a language. The nonverbal communication is primarily processed in the right hemisphere of the brain, verbal in the left hemisphere. Nonverbal communication is primarily automatic. We do the sending and receiving simultaneously. It doesn't work too well when you're talking. And 2 people talk over one another. It's automatic. It's cognitively efficient. We quickly read other people, get an idea of what they're like and what they're likely to do, and react in turn.
Okay, I've been watching your hands.
Sure, I gesture a lot. So,
yes, you do.
Right.
But where do you look first when you are sort of assessing someone and their nonverbal language? Where do you look first?
The most of our attention is directed at people's faces. And a lot of times people think this tells emotions, and that's part of it. But there's a lot of research suggesting what it really does is it suggests intentions. What is somebody likely to do? So, for example, an angry face might not be angry necessarily.
Trying to concentrate or something.
No, it might be a threat.
Oh.
Watch out. So I may not actually even feel angry, but I am warning you.
Now,
a smile is not necessarily happiness,
right,
but I want to get along.
What about a half smile?
Well, there are different kinds of smiles, and what tends to happen is the spontaneous reactions tend to happen quicker, and they tend to be more symmetrical. So sometimes you can pick out the phony stuff if there's a lag in it starting,
yes,
or if the expression is asymmetrical. Not always.
Not always, but sometimes. Okay, why is it important for us to know about nonverbal communication?
Because it affects virtually every phase of life. It affects relationships. It's very important in influence. There's studies like this, doing a simple, would you mind doing this? That little touch significantly increases compliance. So if I'm asking you to sign something, or would you mind donating $1 to that little bit significantly bumps up the compliance.
Well, it's fascinating. You're also doing all this research with strangers when they're walking down the street. Do people look in each other's eyes? It's not that common anymore, is it?
Well, what I do is I study how pedestrians react to one another, strangers, as they pass on the sidewalk. And in the U.S., most people look, well, I'd say we get about 40 or 50% of people glance towards the other person. A substantial proportion of them smile.
Right. In Japan, you don't do that.
In Japan, that's not the social norm. Virtually never happens.
Well, finally, we don't have a whole lot of time, but I just wanted to ask you about the Fox 2 show, Lie to Me.
Okay.
Have you watched it?
I've watched it. I know the guy on whom the character is based.
Oh, okay.
His name is Paul Ekman, and he's been a leading researcher in emotions for 40 years, and we communicate occasionally. He's a world-renowned researcher. A lot of what is in that show is based generally, in fact, but considerably exaggerated.
It's dramatic for the episodes and whatnot, but some of the foundation and the premises of what they're talking about.
The basis of it is grounded in his research.
Well, it's fascinating, and I'm fascinated that after 40 years you still find things.
Yes, or maybe I'm a slow learner.
Saying I'm fascinated?
You know.
Yeah, maybe you are. Oh, look. Oh. Okay, well, thanks for joining us.
All right.
It was great to have you, and we have information about your book. All you have to do is go to our website at kplr11.com, and it's available online and at UMSL. Well, today's holiday tip is your family